Everyone, welcome to A Pinch of Salt. I'm so excited to be able to introduce to you a wonderful cooking segment right here at Central Coast News that's going to be available to you every single week. Hey, my name is Chef Daniel. I have a wonderful guest coming up. His name is Dorian. He's a comedian. He's a funny guy. He does music. He does jazz. He's a 100% entertainer. Dorian, how you going, mate?
I'm going great, mate. How are you?
Good. Can you explain to everybody, what do you do and where do you go?
Okay, well, I would call myself a cultural satirist. So I'm not necessarily a comedian. I wouldn't describe myself as a comedian. I don't do stand-up comedy and talk about airline food. But I write funny books, and I play the piano, and I kind of tell funny stories in between songs, and write little essays for.
And where do you get your inspiration for all of that?
Well, I think as an artist, it behoves you to talk about the culture that you're in. So if you're part of the Central Coast, that's where you live, there's no point writing songs about New Orleans.
That's
so
true.
I write songs about Woy Woy, Ettalong. I've got a song called the Kincumber Rhumba, which is a number to wake you from your slumber.
Kincumber Rhumba. So what's the Ettalong one called?
Get along to Ettalong.
Get along to
Yeah.
Ettalong. Are you sure you're not part of the tourism? That sounds like it should be tourism stuff right there.
That. Everyone who hears that song says it should be part of the Ettalong tourism, but sadly not.
Well, we've got a lot of many funny moments in gossip.
No, I'm working on it. I'm also working on a song called the Woy Woy Waltz Waltz.
Woy Woy Waltz Waltz.
That's another one.
Is that slow and easy and
Yeah,
cool. A bit of rose petals and everything.
Perhaps.
Yeah, cool, awesome. So I heard that you only came along today because I was going to teach you how to make a dish and how to make some fresh butter chicken from scratch. What's your experience with butter chicken? Have you not succeeded in the past?
That's the only one that I have to make from a packet. So it's sort of it's just a little bowl of sadness.
Yes.
Essentially, Daniel. I can make Thai from scratch.
Yeah.
I can do some other things that I'm quite handy with. It gives my wife a break from cooking. But whenever I go to make Indian food, it's not so great. I suspect because I don't use ghee, which is that clarified butter, which I try to not use the fat sort of stuff.
Yep.
Because we're all fighting the battle of the bulge.
I get that 100%.
And I think when I go to Indian restaurants and it tastes completely different to my cooking, I think it's because I'm not using all the bad stuff, but I don't know.
Well, I'm going to try and teach you a couple of tricks of the trade. Okay, so my past is that I was an apprentice in a hotel, and I had many Indians, Indian head chefs and Indian sous chefs and things like that.
Perfect.
So I kind of learned a little bit of the secrets, and one of the unique things that I've learned is that it's all about the onion gravy, number one. And secondly, it's all about how to mix the spices and being very respectful. So Indian culture is probably the only culture that I've been dived into where they actually respect the individual spice beautifully and uniquely.
No, that's interesting.
Right? So we're going to play around with that kind of concept a little bit. So first of all, what we need is an onion. Mm-hmm. So we're going to chop up an onion.
What Asian dish doesn't start with an onion?
Well, funny thing you say that is that all traditional dishes really kind of start with an onion, right? And you see a lot of like the French dishes or Italian dishes that say stew the onion, fry the onion, boil the onion. But onion was the main source of flavor before salt ever existed.
Oh, right.
And when salt finally came around, salt was actually quite expensive. So what people did that didn't have a lot of money, they put onion because they couldn't afford the salt.
Oh, wow.
So that's how they brought out some flavors. So that's kind of like,
font of information, Dan.
yeah, just a whole bunch of useless stuff. What we do is with the onion and the Indian food is we're going to try and grab flavor and we're going to pull it out as much as we can, right? That onion and that gravy and that sauteing and that base is what's going to help with that kind of pulling out of the flavor out of the spices, okay? And that's that kind of secret, right? If you don't smell it, you don't taste it.
Yeah, right.
Right?
I
So
like it.
if you walk into an Indian restaurant and you don't smell what's cooking, don't just walk straight back out.
Wow.
Right? Because you're not going to actually have a good curry.
Yeah, I like
so
that. It's a t-shirt right there.
I think we can get a couple of shirts to go along with.
I like how chefs do that.
I'd
that's
cut
my
easy.
fingers off if I did that.
If you want, all the clips on how to chop up onions are available at, on YouTube and things like
Some
that.
guy in Kazakhstan telling you how to do it. Wow.
So we're going to get up and start off with our brown onion. And we're going to get our pan nice
Not
and
a
hot.
red onion.
No, because brown onion has a lot more flavour. Okay?
Well, that's my first mistake. I always use red onions.
A red onion is kind of like your salady onion because it's calm and it's soft.
Right. And slightly communist.
Pretty much, yeah, sometimes. This one's abrupt, right? Okay. This one's a little bit more in your face, a little bit more ready to rock and roll, okay? Right. So we're going to grab that flavor as much as we can. So first of all, what we need...
So this is the sort of Keith Richards of onions, is that what you're saying? About
yeah, pretty much. The good-looking ones too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. The big flavor.
Charlie Watts.
So we've got ghee.
See?
Right? When it comes to butter chicken...
These are the ways of my people.
Exactly,
fat.
right? You want to go with fat, and it's okay. Because fat's actually good for you.
Tell my wife that.
No, that's the thing. Like, you've got to have fat. The reason why is fat actually is a high, rich, and gives you a lot of nutrients and a lot of source of nutrients. It's when you start mixing it with things like sugar. And that's when it starts to react, or bread, like bread and butter kind of thing.
Yeah,
but if you just have it on its own, it's actually pretty good. Okay. So we're just going to put a little bit of ghee.
So that's clarified butter.
Clarified butter, right? So just a little bit, not too much.
Not too much. That would power a family for a year in Adelaide.
Yes, definitely. That's what we need. We need to lubricate a little bit more.
Unbelievable.
So now we're going to put the onions in while that pan is heating up.
Yeah. See, when chefs say a little bit of butter, that's what happens.
It's all about the flavour, yeah? Right? We got to use that. Now, with that butter in there, with that onion in there, just leave it in.
Wow, that's hardcore.
You could use this thing if you like. It's a spoon, right?
Yeah.
What we're going to do is we're going to cover it.
Right, okay.
By covering it, we're going to sweat the onions off, okay? Now, before we find out a little bit more about you and what we're doing, is one of the things that you mentioned before was, trying to get it right like an Indian restaurant. And this is where that part comes in. And this is one thing I found very, very fascinating. First of all, we got some fenugreek seeds, okay?
Right, okay.
I just like to put a couple of seeds into our onion while it's cooking off.
Never done that before.
Now, what happens is it kind of splits and opens, and then the rocks kind of start to melt down and then really get into that ghee a little bit more. But this is the fun part. So we've got some cumin, right? A little bit of cumin. Don't be afraid to make this like full of flavor, right? Okay. Garam masala.
Now that's a mixed spice, isn't it?
Like it's kind of like a mix, an Indian basic mix thing, right? It's like, the Chinese 5 spice.
Yeah.
This is the Indian version of Chinese 5 spice.
That's your Colonel Sanders 12 secret spices, right?
Pretty much, right?
Indian-wise.
Yeah, there's like cardamom in there, there's caraway in there, there's a bit of cinnamon in there, but it's a perfect blend. A little bit of turmeric.
Recognise that. That
right?
gives that real yellow colour.
That nice, beautiful, but we could turn it red, right? Because we're going to actually mix it with things like tomato and cream. Right, so I put in some paprika.
Paprika.
Right, it's my little thing. Right. I like to add that little bit of sweetness into it.
Oh, so it's a sweet.
Yeah,
so you're not
sweet
adding
paprika.
any sugar here.
No.
Okay, bit of chili.
Bit of chili, because we just want to get rid of the butteriness, right? Because butter chicken's nice, and you want the butteriness, but sometimes it can be too buttery.
Isn't
that
it all
chili.
In the name, Daniel?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But we're
going
to try and give it.
Chicken.
We're just going to try and make sure that it really pushes. So. When I say don't be afraid of the spices, this is where a lot of people go, but how much spice do I put in there? Just load it in, right? More the merrier, I say.
Yeah. Okay.
So good amount of garam masala. Now, this is the secret. I'm going to get you to do this part.
Okay, yeah.
Take the spoon.
Yeah.
I'm going to get some water.
Right.
And just mix for me.
Okay.
Mix that through. Now you can see how much water we put in there, right? It's quite a big amount of water. And you can see how quickly that dries up. Now I'm going to show everyone in the shot how dry it looks. So what we need to do is we actually need to put more water. We need to give this as much water as possible, right? Not too much. We don't want to make it like a liquid. We're trying to make it like a good paste.
That's pretty liquidy there.
Yeah, so once you mix it through, it'll actually kind of thicken up just ever so slightly a bit more.
You've done this cooking a bit before.
Just a couple of times. Yeah. Give it a good mix, all that kind of mixed through properly. Get it really, really well mixed. Now what happens, and this is the secret, whenever you're mixing spices and Indian spices, what we're going to do is put the water in it, and the water will protect the actual spice itself. So if I throw the spice straight into that hot ghee and that onion, that spice is going to burn before it blossoms the flavour.
Well, that's where I'm confused, because on lots of cooking shows that should remain nameless, they often want to sort of roast the spices and things first, don't they?
You don't really need to,
don't need to.
right?
Okay.
By doing it like this, you've protected it with the water, giving it some moisture. So as it cooks out, you actually got that power to drag that flavour and pull it straight out. And that's where the fragrance and the smells come from.
Yeah, right. Well, that's smelling good already.
Now, you ready for this part? This is the funnest part, right?
Okay.
You can see this. If you're in a rush, just give it a bit of color, make sure it's melted down, that's fine. If you're not in a rush, give it a few more minutes, right? Don't be afraid to cook this down a little bit further, okay? But grab all of that and throw it into there.
Okay.
Now, you can see we've put in that spices in there, the onions in there. Leave the lid off at this point and just let it cook out. Let that water kind of evaporate. By that water evaporating, those spices are going to come straight out and that smell's going to come straight out.
Smells good.
Now, tell us a little bit more about where do you perform? What kind of shows do you have?
Well, I've got a few different shows. I've been doing a show around the country which has been a little tribute to the Nat King Cole Trio, and where I tell Nat King Cole's life story, and I've transcribed.
So for the young ones, who's Nat King Cole?
Who's Nat King Cole? Well, Nat King Cole was the first sort of black performer to really break through the American white middle class market, and he had huge songs. In fact, he was the first black performer to have a Christmas song called the Christmas Song, and every Christmas you'll hear Nat King Cole. But to most older viewers, I mean, most of my audience for the Nat King Cole show aren't kind of cruising TikTok and all that sort of stuff. So you may not know who Nat King Cole is. But I'm also doing funny little satire. I'm doing a show in February at the Naughty Noodle Funhouse, and where I'm just doing some of my funny little songs about the Central Coast and some of my cultural satires, and it's a big mixed bag, and I have a regular little organ trio gig that I do, so doing lots of different things, lots of writing. I write funny little articles for NRMA Open Road magazine, which I've been doing for about 15 years now, little travel pieces, so yeah.
And you're on radio?
I'm on ABC once a month,
cool.
on the weekend show, just talking nonsense, really, just about
that's what radio
roller
is.
skating in the 70s, or
That's awesome.
Yeah, train trips, and just different funny little things.
Well, what I've added in here is a little bit of garlic and a little bit of ginger. Okay, so now you can see how that
solidify a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you can actually see how it's thickening up, because what I'm getting rid of is the water.
Okay.
Right. This is that frying concept of those spices that are really pushing through, and if you give it a whiff. Right,
wow.
all of a sudden it's starting to smell
Smells like an Indian restaurant.
like an Indian restaurant, right? So that's the kind of the best analogy I can give you to get your curries right.
Okay.
If it ain't smelling like it, gotta make sure it smells like an Indian restaurant,
Yeah, I
right?
love that. That's
You want the
great.
streets of India to come right through your kitchen.
I do.
So this is the gravy part, right? This is that onion gravy part, that spice mix.
Okay.
Yeah, that little bit of ginger in there, that little bit of garlic. As you can see, all those waters starting to evaporate. It's starting to turn more into a paste,
Yep.
right?
Now, at the moment, Daniel, it's not looking very butter chicken. It's
No.
looking like a regular curry, because that magic's about to come, is it?
Yeah, that magic is about to come when we start adding a few extra ingredients, right?
Okay.
So the first ingredient we're going to add in is some chicken.
Okay. So, breast or thigh?
I like using thighs, right? Now you can use breast. The secret if you're using breast is you're going to add the tomato and the cream first, and then you're going to poach the breast into the curry.
Right.
Because you don't want to overcook the breast, right? You want to make sure.
C-cup?
Usually doubles.
Right.
Double Ds are really, really good, especially if it's for a couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So we want to make sure that we use all that as much as we can. Now we're going to throw in our tomato, just canned
Now,
pulp
is that
tomato.
just from a can, or?
It's from a can,
Yep, can.
normal can,
Now, is it tomato paste or is it tomato puree? Or
tomato pulp.
pulp? Right.
Yeah. So what I like to use
Right.
is the muti tomato pulper. The reason why I like to use muti is I've been to the factory.
Wow.
And I've seen it in Parma, in Italy, and it's actually quite fascinating. It's because their tomatoes actually get stripped with like little ball-bearing balls instead of actually using heat, and then they cook them in the can. So you've got full flavour in there.
Ball bearings in the can.
Pretty much, yeah, anything you want. They cook everything in there.
Crunchy.
It gives you a little bit of mixing agents into it.
Okay.
So now we're going to stir this around. We've got the tomato in there, we've got the curry in there. Yeah?
So that's starting to look more like butter chicken.
Now that's done. Now you ready?
Yeah.
Grab that cream for me. You ready?
cream.
You ready?
So we've gone butter, we've gone cream.
Yep.
Let me just adjust my belt.
Yeah, you getting
Another
excited
loop.
yet?
Another loop. How much you want?
Go for it. I'll
whole
tell you
thing?
when to stop. Stop. Then we mix.
Cream, eh? Just so not yogurt.
No yogurt.
And not coconut
Look,
cream.
if
just
you want to
regular
put,
cream.
regular cream. If you want to put yogurt in it, you can. But when you're using yogurt, you want to make the marination of the chicken with the yogurt, right?
Okay.
This kind of buttered chicken is very quick, very easy, and very homely.
Is marination a word, Daniel?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's a full word.
Marination.
If you want to marinate, you can marination. You can do whatever you like. It's called Chef English.
Right.
Just we'll run with that one. It goes along with Rumba. What was the
Kincumber Rhumba.
Kincumber Rhumba.
Yeah,
See, you
yeah.
come up with some great lines and great words. What was the one for Woy Woy?
The Woy Woy Waltz Waltz. Yeah.
Why? Is it because it's Woy Woy
Yeah,
Waltz Waltz?
you've just worked
Yeah,
it out.
right. I've
Yeah.
got it. See, I'm a pretty cluey guy.
Yeah.
I think it's happening.
No flies on you. Or in there.
So, family, kids,
Yes,
wife.
I have two sons. Both studied music. My youngest son's a drummer, jazz drummer. My eldest son is the guitarist with the Whitlams at the moment, and
Wow.
also Ian Moss, if you've heard of that
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
He's been playing with him and recorded with Keith Urban last year, and he's doing very well.
So you play? Do you play an instrument? I guess.
Well, I'm a jazz pianist.
Piano. So
Yeah,
keyboard,
I play
piano. Yeah.
and the organ, and the
Yeah.
hand organ. And Oliver plays the guitar and pedal steel. So he's become quite proficient on the pedal
right.
steel guitar. So he does a lot of country gigs and things.
And then you got a drummer.
And my son's a drummer. So
You've just
I
created
play
your own band.
I've bred my band.
Please tell me your wife's a singer.
No, she was a dancer.
A dancer.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
there you go.
There you go.
I can't believe I'm going to adopt. I'll become your singer.
Well, you can do all the catering.
Yeah, I'll do the food. I'm
Yeah.
happy with that one. I think
Yeah.
that's a lot better than me singing. That's for sure. All right. So now
you
when
told me that you bought a saxophone. You own a saxophone.
I own a saxophone. I played saxophone when I was in year 8.
School band?
School band. Sorry, year 7, 8, 9, 10.
Did you grow up here on the Central Coast?
No, I grew up down in Sydney
Yeah.
in a place, Lewisham.
Oh, yeah?
I went to Christian Brothers Lewisham, which is kind of like the Eddie's version.
Oh, yeah?
It's the
My-
same
my
kind
kids
of.
went to Eddie's.
Yeah, so same, right?
Yeah.
Same school, same brothers,
Catholic school.
same whole thing. And so I played then, and then I decided a couple of years ago, I'm like, I should really get back into saxophone. Thinking I could just pick it up and start again. Yeah, I need some lessons. I need some serious lessons.
Oh, well.
So maybe in about a year's time,
That's
I could
good.
be your.
We
could be a part of the band.
Have a play. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be good fun.
Yeah.
All right, so this is almost ready.
Okay.
What I've got over here is a plate. We need our plate. Now we're going to get some rice. So I've just cooked some rice over here.
Okay. Now, what's your basmati? Is that your?
Basmati, yeah. So
Now how do you get it yellow?
Right,
Show
so-
the folks the yellow rice.
let's get the yellow rice happening. Here we go. Can everyone see
I
that?
was impressed by yellow rice.
Right, so you got two options with yellow rice. If you want to go the proper fancy style, saffron.
Okay.
A little bit of saffron.
I know that when I put saffron in with rice, I've done that before. I get
It doesn't yellow? Yeah, right.
Yellow.
Because you're not
Like
mixing
it's got
it.
a skin cancer.
Yeah, pretty much what you
Yeah.
need to do is when you put the butter in the pan, you want to put the saffron in with the butter. Because you want to make that saffron bleed in the butter,
Okay.
because the butter is actually going to go everywhere.
Ah, right. So
The
you're putting butter
saffron.
in the rice as well.
Yeah, definitely need butter.
Chefs and
That's-
butter. I tell you, my shoe would taste good in butter.
Do you know what the
I don't
secret
use
is
any
to
butter
mashed
in my
potato? You know the three
Butter?
secrets? Butter,
Right.
butter, and more butter. Yeah, we're good. We nailed it. So now we got this rice,
That looks good enough to eat.
and we're just gonna. What I like to do is I actually like serving my curry on a plate, not in a bowl,
Now, why is that, Dan?
because I kind of like, sometimes you want a little bit more rice, sometimes you want a little bit more curry and things like that. At least you've got the rest of the plate to try and play with, instead of actually just having to dig in and trying to get under the rice.
I like that.
At least you're actually able to serve.
Yeah, right.
Now, if I was to serve this in like the restaurant, for example, I would put some cucumber and onion on the side or some naan bread. But at home, no fancy business.
Oh, good.
Okay?
You're
So
not
now-
gonna do all that at home.
Nah, don't need to do all that stuff at home.
No.
This bad boy's almost ready. We're just going to
Okay.
finish it off. I like just putting a little bit of coriander.
Okay.
Just like that.
You chop it quite finely, right?
Yeah, nice and fine. When it comes to coriander stalks, you could use that in the start of cooking.
Yeah, and when they say stalks, do they mean this bit?
That's the
Or do
roots.
They mean, yeah. So,
This part is the stalks, roots,
right,
leaves.
Of course.
So you can use the roots. I like using the roots in
I know a
blends.
guy called stalks, roots, and leaves.
That could be a new song. We could do something. I reckon we could create a song. Knowing your creation, you could definitely create a song about
song.
stalks, leaves, and roots.
No, the other way around.
Oh yeah, okay, the other way around. So when we're using the stalks, the roots, I use it into like a basic paste. Like if I'm mixing like onion and lemongrass and things like that. So, you know, your Thai cooking, that kind of stuff, grind it in there.
Right, okay.
The stalks, you could use the same thing or at the start of cooking.
So you are using the roots?
Yes, if you want to use the roots, you can.
But from the ground up.
So if you literally smell that.
Yeah, right.
Right, it's got a beautiful kind of earthy coriander flavor. This has got kind of like the fresh but sustainable kind of, you can actually use it in cooking and it will actually blossom in flavor.
Right, okay.
Where the leaves are that kind of light, fresh thing.
Right.
And that brings me to actually how to use it. So what you need to do is turn the heat off, right? Give it a stir, slow down the boiling. Now you're going to pick up all that for me and throw it in there.
Oh, so once it's turned
right
off,
at the end, yeah,
right,
turn it off.
okay.
And then what happens is that coriander oils and things like that are going to bleed. And they're going to kind of like bruise.
Sprinkle it in or
Sprinkle it in, go for it, chuck it in. We're just going to, now you could almost give that a whiff and give that a smell. You could smell that freshness of that coriander kind of blossoming right through.
Yeah, I like it. Oh, I've learned lots today, Dan.
Yeah, you're welcome. So now what we're going to do is we're going to place this onto our plate. Does that look a little bit more like your butter chicken?
It does.
And it doesn't look red and blossomy, right?
No.
The reason why is because I don't have any food colour in there. It's made from scratch.
So is that what they're doing in the restaurants? They're putting food colour
Sometimes, yeah, they do. They actually, because you want that. What they do is not food colouring. They use like imitation saffron and things like that. So they're not going to douse it.
Because when it comes out of the packet, which will remain nameless, it's quite bright red.
Yes, exactly. And that's what it's just, it's because your perception of what you need butter chicken to look like.
But if you go to a restaurant, it's more like that.
Yeah, because it's cooked from scratch and cooked from fresh. So this is our butter chicken, right? Nice colour, simple, little bit of green. Now, this is what we can actually see in the camera now, is you could actually be able to actually eat it and actually be able to take a little bit of that rice and a little bit of that curry at the same time. So that's where your job is going to come in.
Ah, okay.
Do we have a little bit of a song tune for butter chicken here?
Not really. I haven't got a butter chicken song, but I have noticed that plates have grown a lot since I was a kid.
Yeah, definitely. We're trying to get bigger and better around here.
I mean, we'll be eating it from a plate. There's eating that in the
If you want a nice little secret about actually plates and things like that, if you use your plate as your picture frame, and what you're putting in your picture frame is your picture. And that's the secret to making food look good in the picture.
Good.
Yeah, nice little bit, teach you something a
Street
little bit.
smarts.
Yeah.
Like it.
But give it a try. Tell me what you think. I can't wait, because this is one thing, when people are excited to learn something, I want to make sure that they're happy to eat and try it and actually give it a good taste.
I'm trying to take a bite size that looks elegant on camera.
Nothing really looks elegant on camera when you're trying to eat.
This was at nuclear temperature about 3 seconds ago. If I suddenly start crying...
Just blow on it.
Blow on it?
Yeah, that can go with the root, stalks and leaves song.
That's good.
Yeah, nice and easy. You can make this at home. You just get that spice mix. The recipes will be available to you as well. You just get that spice mix. You can make that spice mixture as well. Leave it in the cupboard. Pull it out, put a couple of teaspoons in a bowl, whip it in some water, throw it in, chicken, off you go.
Yeah, right.
If you want, you can actually mix that with some tomato paste and some yogurt.
Okay.
And then smother that over chicken, put on the barbecue.
Yeah.
Right? A really nice way to turn your barbecue... Marination. There we go. You're nailing the words right now. I hope you enjoy cooking this, and more importantly, I hope your wife enjoys you cooking this.
She will, and she'll love all the butter.
Fantastic, even better. Guys, until next time, ciao. See you later.